I want to talk, Steph, with you about the demand, because in meeting you last year and learning about your story, I I live in a bubble. I think I'm thinking I'm not the only one. And the demand, why do we have sex trafficking? Why do we have sexual exploitation? What is the catalyst? What is the driver for this? When you get asked that question, what's your answer to that?
Yeah. Just like with any industry, you don't have a product unless there's a demand for it. And if there wasn't a demand for sex, you wouldn't need to sell sex. I was actually talking to a mutual friend of ours a couple months ago, and he is in law enforcement. And he said, if we can figure out how to make the demand go away, then people would sell something else instead of humans. We wouldn't sell humans for sex if there wasn't demand. And we really have a demand because of our over-sexualized culture that uses sex to sell everything all the time, and pornography. Pornography feeds human trafficking. It feeds sex trafficking. It feeds it because when you look at pornography, it hits all the right pleasure centers in our brain that being addicted to methamphetamine does. It works very similarly in our brain as a drug, as a very addictive drug. And because of the internet and the ability for pornography to be accessed at any time, and not just one kind, or not the pornography of our grandparents' generation, not a Playboy or even a movie. This is evolving. It's evolving, and it's extremely violent. It's extremely degrading. I wouldn't even call it sex, and yet it's a lot of children's first exposure to sex. It's their first sex ed lesson per se. And so when we look at human trafficking, if you ask anyone about human trafficking or sex trafficking, and we have it because of a demand, and it really is fed because of an addiction to sex, because of a need to feed an addiction, and that is really pushed forward, move forward because of pornography in our world today.
And isn't it that because it is so abusive, and because it involves child pornography, when people see it, they're kind of desensitized to it.
Yes.
Because it's not what we think of sex being. It's not what we think of, the intimate relationship we have with our spouse or our partner. It's very different than that, right?
Yes. Yeah, it really is training young minds to not look at people, as human beings with value, but it's training them to look at people as objects. I used to go talk in schools similar to Jessica, and I used to make teenagers look each other in the eye, because we've stopped doing that. We've stopped seeing each other as human beings, and what value do you bring to the world? We just kind of think about sex as, what can I get out of it? Or it's like a transactional thing. And pornography and our over-sexualized culture for sure feeds into that narrative. So yeah.
Wow, what a great conversation. Okay, I'm so glad I'm back. I felt lost.
I am too. We're going to invite Ben and Amy Brand on now. And Ben and Amy are some dear friends of mine, and I've known them for quite a while. They were college sweethearts. They met in 2001. They've been married for 16 years. They found Jesus together. They love him when they were in premarital classes, and he's been their secret weapon through a lot of different hardships, as they're going to tell us about here in a minute. Ben is a senior project control specialist for Westinghouse in their nuclear energy department. And I am not going to lie, I have absolutely no idea what that means he does, except that it makes him sound very smart. And Amy is a homeschooling mom who loves redecorating their home, and she isn't battling chronic illness. And they have two girls, ages 13 and 8. Ben and Amy, are you here with us? I see. Oh, there you are. Hey, friends.
Hi.
So good to see you guys. How are you?
You too.
We're good.
Good. Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and start by telling us a little bit about yourselves. I just said how long you've been married, so you don't have to say that. But anything you want to add to what I just said about you?
Anything you want to add? I don't know.
I mean, I said a lot of good things. That was great. Let's just get right into it. Why is human
over here?
Can you hear? Oh,
they're here at the event watching with us.
I love it. Hi, girls. So good to have you. I'm so glad. Okay, let's get into it. Why is human trafficking and exploitation a topic that is close to your heart as a couple?
Sure. Well, I'll start.
Go ahead.
My background is I endured sexual abuse as a child, and I dealt with depression in high school, and didn't realize that I was actually one of the vulnerable ones to trafficking until just a few years ago. Excuse me, when I came to an event similar to this and learned about vulnerabilities and learned that I was that person, and then I missed it by this much. Thankfully, because I did end up turning to an older man, and he was not a great man, but he wasn't trafficking me. So that was a real eye opener for me. I went from that relationship into this relationship, and I married Ben partially because he was safe and would never do anything to hurt me, and he was the guy that everybody loved. Can we clone him? Just a really good guy that I've yet to meet somebody that doesn't like him. And so that ended up not totally being the case. I'll let you kind of.
And so for me, my journey through this has to deal with the pornography part of it. And that started early on in my life. And it was very intermittent too. So I was actually even thinking about today and stuff, the time that kind of started was third grade. It was basically being invited to a birthday party and watching something I shouldn't have. We were all watching it and stuff. It wasn't like what you would think normal, pornography would be and stuff. It was a normal movie that was out there, the mainstream movie, but it's something at that age I shouldn't have been watching. And then, fast forward to say like high school, later on in high school and stuff, I remembered that there was a time when one of my friends, we went to his older brother's house, and he was actually a cop at that time. He just started being a cop, but he had pornography there too. And there was this moment one night where that was happening too. And that's when I actually first, saw that at that time. And then I think early in college, it started to kind of escalate more. And so for me, it was more of a progression, and it started becoming an addiction and stuff like that. So, it started off, early in age with this one thing, and then just being, around it, not necessarily looking for it, but just, being invited to certain things, and then all of a sudden it's there. So yeah, it kind of progressed that way. And obviously this all happened before our marriage. And so I brought that part of it into our marriage, and, she had no idea.
No, it was about 1.5 years into our marriage when I actually caught him looking at it. And
right.
And yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
was
that's
fun.
that was the beginning.
Do you feel like that pornography has been helpful for your marriage or harmful for your marriage?
Harmful,
Yeah.
but helpful in getting to the bottom of, your problems that you might have, and actually like bringing them to light.
Yeah.
And that's like obviously a big thing, like with everyone that's speaking stuff, they want to be heard. They want, they want someone to hear about this so they can get it out in the open and stuff. And so like for me, that I can look back at my journey and stuff, since we've been married, since, everything had started and stuff. And I can tell that what really helped me was when I chose to go do something about it, because early on when she found out, she was the one that was trying to line things up and get me help and stuff. And I wasn't doing the action part of it. And so it took, I think it was probably, that was probably around 2005 or so. And about 2015, I had kind of relapsed at that point in time and stuff, but I chose then at that point in time to take certain actions and to seek people out in our local church for a mentor. I reached out to a friend of mine to basically meet with on a weekly basis early on in that time period and stuff. And that really helped, because then I was able to share my story and my difficulties and stuff, and just being heard and stuff, and being able to talk to someone about that, and someone that's genuinely interested in your own, your own health and well-being and stuff really helped me.
Yeah. And I think the culture wants to say things like, well, all guys look at pornography, or maybe it's something you should invite into your marriage and make your intimacy better. And it actually does the complete opposite. Our sex life was horrible. It was something that we fought about all the time. And when you have an addiction to something like pornography, you lose the ability to physically react to a real life person, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, it desensitizes it.
Yeah, you're desensitized to it. And so he actually had to relearn how to not be stimulated by an image on a screen, but by a person. Well, me. And, you know, so I think that people look at it and think it's, you know, it's no big deal. It's not harmful. It's, and that's just not true. Once we got him help and got it out of our lives, our sex life completely changed and did a 180, you know, and it was better than it had ever been. So
there's two things I want to have you guys share about that you kind of already touched on. When I talk about trafficking, and every time I talk about pornography, I can see the eyes in the room. I can see the hurt that's happening in marriages with people. And I think there's a lot of shame and guilt around this issue. But what I'm hearing you say is that there's hope. And that when you bring something into the light, then there's freedom. And I just wonder if you could speak to that for a minute.
Yeah. Well, for us, you know, when we came together and stuff, we both came from different religious sects. And so when we came together, we really started understanding what God and Jesus meant and having a relationship in our life. And so I think by having that foundation early on and stuff, like without God in it, it wouldn't have mattered. We probably would have been in a divorce, but
yeah.
For her, it helped her.
Yeah, for me, I mean, for us, I know that there's people watching who are, you know, maybe not of Christian faith or Christian background. But I can honestly say that for me personally in the situation, we would have divorced. I was ready to divorce. And he is actually the one who wouldn't give up, which is huge. And for me, literally the only thing that got us through that time period was my faith in Christ. That was it. That was all I had to cling to. Our families were not behind us. He was my enemy. So I looked at the time, I was alone. I had nowhere else to turn except Jesus. and that's the truth. I mean, that's the only thing that really got us through. And, you know, it was an experience for me too, to have to look at myself and how I played a role in all of this. Not that I was to blame in any way, shape, or form, but he's pretty quiet. You can see he's actually sitting back, and I tend to move forward.
It's easier to put my arm around you when you're back here like this.
I'm the extrovert. I'm a strong-willed woman and can steamroll him sometimes. And I just remember Jesus speaking to my spirit saying, he can't rise up and be that man that he needs to be for our family if that role is already being fulfilled by me. And so I had to really learn how to tone down myself and let him rise up and look at him less like an enemy and more like support. He needed my support. He was already beating himself up.
Yeah, I mean, I had my own shame and guilt already and stuff, and it had nothing to do with her. It was everything that I was bringing into it and everything that I had, you know, carried into it from, you know, all the sin that I already had. So it was something I had to deal with. And obviously I needed support. I needed support from other people and stuff that were close by. I didn't need a lot of people. I just needed the right people.
Yeah. It's important to speak it out to the right people. I think that's really crucial.
Yeah.
Well, we know with trafficking that the average person who purchases someone for sex is a white, middle-aged man with a family who lives in the suburbs. And I think that is also true with pornography. And I think that once again, since we've been talking about, you know, getting the stigmas away and shining a light on what's really happening in our communities, it's important to not demonize men, but to talk about the things that they're in bondage to and the shame and guilt that exists there, and to allow that to be a conversation in a safe space too, so that buyers and demand can also receive help. And do you guys feel like that's why you're sitting here on a Zoom call tonight?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We started talking about this and sharing our story 16 years ago. And 16 years ago, this was not something you talked about. And, you know, even within the church, we were shunned. It was not pretty. And, you know, like I said, we didn't even have the support of our families. It was something shameful that you don't talk about. And we did our own thing and continued to talk about it. And over the years, it's become a little more acceptable to talk about. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, back then, the statistic was that 5% of marriages made it through a pornography addiction.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just insanity. And so I think a lot of times, first of all, I want to say that, yes, if you look at him, he is like exactly what you described as the person that's addicted to pornography, right? And the people that, had he not gotten out of it when he did, maybe would have progressed into acting out some of these things that he was seeing on screen. Because with any addiction, you need harder stuff, you need more stuff. And
because you get desensitized through the process, and so you're always wanting the next best thing. And
right, which is
progresses that way.
why pornography is not the same today as it was even 10 years ago. It's becoming more harsh. It's becoming
Extreme
violence, incest, things, you know, when we talked yesterday, stuff like things that are not socially acceptable. Are now what pornography is becoming. And that is because the people that are addicted to it are needing worse and worse and harder hits to get those pleasure centers. And it's not because these are disgusting, you know, fat, I don't know, whatever the stigma is of people who sit behind a computer screen and become addicted to pornography. That is not who is doing this. This is your next door neighbor. This is your dad. Anybody. This is your brother. This is, you know, this is your mom. I mean, it's women too.
For sure.
And I think we definitely need to be talking more about it. I mean, it's not easy for us to sit here and share this. It's still a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. But we very much think that it's important because the people that know us and love us would never suspect that that is our history. We have a wonderful marriage today, and we've worked really hard to get there. But I think that it starts by being willing to be uncomfortable and have the conversation and to say, you're not alone. And this is happening everywhere. This is happening all the time with people everywhere. And so we need to start talking about it so that it becomes
naturally, you can talk about it naturally. There's no awkwardness to it.
And also so people know where to go. I mean, we've shared in several capacities, and I've had many women reach out to me who actually judged me in the beginning, only to later find out that someone in their life was dealing with this, and they didn't know where to turn, but they turned to me because I had been willing to openly share. And so that's the Heart's desire in sharing, is just share your story, get out there, and be willing to be that person that, you know, maybe will take a couple hits from people, but it's worth it for the people who need it. So
thank you guys so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable. I'm really grateful. It's really important to bring it into the light, and it's really important to have personal stories. So valuable. And I love that your kids are right there, because I think this is exactly what we need in this world. We need healthy conversations about what relationships are supposed to be and bring it into the light. Things when they're it's like when my living room is dusty and the sun comes in the windows, then you got to clean it up, right? But in the darkness, you could just live in the dirt. So we gotta bring it into the light. So thank you so much, you guys, for coming on tonight and sharing. I really appreciate it. Thanks, friends.
Thank you.
Wow, that was, you know, a very brave story to tell. One that not many people would be willing to tell. So it's very eye-opening. Thank you to them for joining us. Okay, should we keep moving on?
Or keep moving. Thanks you guys for hanging with us. I know we're going over, but this content is so good. Oh, it's our big reveal slide. This is our new shirt. Yay, that we have just for our event tonight. It says act on what you believe, right? That's what it says. So I love it. And we are grateful for our partnership with Custom and Kind and their local, really amazing business here in the Twin Cities. They put on the Minnesota market, Christmas market, Minnesota. I'm saying it wrong. I just did that. Was it in my notes? But they're amazing. Go follow them. Go purchase their stuff. You know, it's a great time to support small businesses. So